welcome to the special edition of The Appointment. I'm Shereen Bhan, and we're in conversation with the Chief of Honeywell, David Cote. Dave, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. You're here in India, you've met with the Prime Minister, but let me take you back to an interview that you did in 2012. You said, as bureaucratic as I may feel the US and other countries are, it's like India took the complexity of the British system, doubled it, added 10 times the people. It's mind-boggling, and I'm amazed how long it takes to get anything done. I have no math to support this, but I've always felt that the government bureaucracy costs India about 3 GDP points a year. But you also said that you're a big fan of the country. Have things changed significantly since 2012 for you?
I would say all those things that I said then are still true, except that now it's changing for the better.
Okay.
So I at least back then, because I was getting ready to say the exact same thing again. If you hadn't quoted me, I was going to say it again.
So it continues to be as bad,
Oh, yeah, it's still an issue. The thing is, at least now, government is doing something about it. And that makes a huge difference, because as things start to get better, then business starts to get better, which causes more change to happen, which causes business to get better. And back 3 or 4 years ago, it was just stultifying. In fact, what you were feeling in that interview was just total dismay on my part for a country I believed in and felt had wonderful potential, and it just couldn't get out of its own way. And now I feel like that change is happening, so I'm actually quite enthused about where things are going. And I just hope everybody is supportive of the government in making these changes, making it easier to get business done, getting things like GST finished, just ease of doing business everywhere, extraordinarily important for the growth of the country.
You know, these are long-term structural reforms. You talk about the ease of doing business. We continue to be at 142 as far as the World Bank's ease of doing business rankings are concerned. So it's going to take time, but what are you most enthused about? Because the sense that one gets, at least as far as portfolio investors are concerned, that expectations ran ahead of reality, expectations ran ahead of fundamentals. But as a strategic investor, as a long-term India investor, what's your sense about the strength of the recovery and the strength of the policy action taken by the government so far?
Well, let me back up a bit. I would say expectations always outrun reality, because it's just how people are. Emotions take over and you get excited. The thing that I would take issue with is when you say these things will take time. Because when it comes to, I'd say, just how herd instinct works in people, you have a brief window of time to get things done. And you saw this happen 20 years ago when Manmohan Singh got a bunch of changes done. India lived off those changes for 12 or 15 years. And then everything started to slow down because there were no more changes coming. They happened in 2 or 3 years and then they stopped. So as far as I'm concerned, the country should be looking at it now and saying, get everything done you can, because this is the window. And once that window passes, then there's a very good chance things slow down again. You shouldn't just assume once we're on the path to change, we're going to stay on the path to change. Because 20 years ago, India was on the path to change and then stopped. So it could very well happen that way again. So get the changes done as fast as you can, and the country will benefit for a long time.
So this government is completing a year in office at the end of this month. They have 4 more years, technically, to be able to push forward with the reform agenda that they've put together. But how much patience do foreign investors currently have with the Indian government and the Indian reform agenda?
Well, I would say the whole concept of patient money is oftentimes an oxymoron. So that's why I'm saying get the changes done. So if people don't start to sense that the change is real, that it's really happening, then they hold back, which will cause change generally to hold back. And you end up with this kind of effect where you just work your way down. When what you could be doing instead is working your way up. You start to see a lot of changes, money comes in, more changes, more money. and you get the build-up instead of the build-down.
So speaking of the build-up now, on the basis of the action that's been taken by the government so far, further liberalization for the defense sector, where the FDI cap has now been hiked to 49%, the FDI cap for insurance and pension been further liberalized as well. Retail, of course, is off the table for now. How enthused do you feel by the reform measures taken by this government so far, and what does that then mean for companies like yourself and your investment plans?
Well, these are all good steps, but we should not assume that, okay, because we've made those steps, that's it.
That money's going to come in.
Yeah, and that's as far as we need to go, because getting back to how difficult it is to do business here and how often local businesses are protected, which can be a good thing sometimes. If you're trying to get change done, you got to be very careful about that, because if you want foreign money to come in, they have to feel like the changes are real and that their money's going to be safe and that it's going to grow. And I've often used this phrase. I wish I'd made it up because I like it so much, but it's that capital is a coward.
Yeah.
And that is really true. So if you want money to flow into the country, they have to feel it's safe and it's going to grow. And the only way you get that is by more change. So all these changes that you talked about are all good first steps. But nobody should assume that it's done. And that's one of the things we try to accomplish with the CEO forum that's been established between our two countries, India and the U.S., to start driving change on both sides, the things that we can do in the U.S. and the things that we can do in India, that'll just create a better environment for investment and build even stronger commercial ties and increase the prosperity of both countries.
You know, you were talking about creating a safe environment for capital in India, and one of the key concerns has been the retrospective tax issue. This government doesn't seem to have been able to address that issue specifically, though they continue to maintain that they don't believe in an era of retrospective taxation. Does that continue to be a significant risk while putting in money into India?
Well, this is another phrase that I didn't coin, but I really like it, and it's one of your politicians talked about India tax terrorism. It is true. This is, I would say, overall one of the most difficult tax regimes we deal with in the world. And it's almost confiscatory sometimes when, and this is not to say all companies are doing things all right all the time. We're not. I mean, I know that. That's just how not all companies behave. So that's not to say that every company does things right. However, the tax regime here is really difficult. And you have tax collection agents being measured on how much they collect. And you have a system where they can put in claims that they know they'll lose in court someday, but the penalty for losing at some point so exceeds the interest benefit that you get that you just pay it. Fight it in court. 8 years later, you get your money back.
Yeah.
So this whole system is geared towards giving tax-free loans from companies to the government. And it's true for domestic companies, and it's true for international companies. And as part of the CEO forum, I once mentioned this to a number of government ministers in a semi-public forum, and I was really concerned that I was offending my India government hosts here, but I have a reputation for candor that is good and bad. Interestingly, after the meeting, it was all the Indian CEOs who came up to me and said, "Thank you for saying something. We're afraid to say it because we're afraid of the repercussions, but it is the truth and we need to do something about it."
So did you bring this matter up when you met with the Prime Minister 2 days ago?
We talked about it, yes.
And did he give you any assurance? Did he give, through you, foreign investors, any assurance that this government is going to be able to address this issue?
I would say he is well aware that there's a lot of changes that need to occur in the country. It's not just on the tax side, but ease of doing business, the ability for foreign investment to come in. He's well aware of the energy efficiency and what needs to be done there. He's well aware of all this stuff. This is a very smart man.
You know, if I were to look at the India-China comparison, specifically from a Honeywell point of view, India contributes about 2% to Honeywell's global sales. China contributes about 6% currently. Do you see India playing catch-up anytime soon?
Well, let me put it this way. 13 years ago when I came to Honeywell, our sales in India and our sales in China were about the same. Today, China is the second biggest country for sales for all of Honeywell, the biggest country outside the U.S. Because during that period of time, that China economy and the changes that they were driving and the ease of doing business, all the things that we just talked about, they did. India did not. India is now starting to do that, and that's one of the reasons I'm so enthused about where things could go. I have 13,000 people here. We already have a terrific presence. If the economy can grow at the rate that I think it can, with the kind of changes that the government is looking at making, this could be spectacular, absolutely spectacular. But that pace of change needs to continue.
But how long, if the pace of change continues to follow the path that the Prime Minister has laid out, how long do you think India will be able to be at par with China as far as Honeywell's global portfolio is concerned?
Next year.
Next year?
No. No, of course, this is going to... it takes some time, because for a long period of time, India didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So now you are. In the meantime, China was doing a lot. So that pace of change is going to be important. Who knows how things unfold over 10 years? If India keeps making those changes, keeps making it easier for business to be successful.
How excited do you feel about China currently? Because perhaps for the first time in several years, we're going to see China deliver a sub 7% growth rate. Of course, it's nothing to scoff for, but do you get a sense that we are going to see significant pain as far as the Chinese economy is concerned?
Well, I should say first, I am very much a long-term bull on China. I just see them constantly evolving.
And significantly more bullish on China than India?
I would say based on track record, yes, because they have shown an ability to evolve. So their government is constantly changing, recognizing when they have issues, and they do have significant issues. It's not like they don't, but the U.S. has issues, Europe has issues. I see China really doing something about theirs. There's always something that could go wrong. It's entirely possible. They could have hardliners take over who create a territorial dispute that gets out of hand. There could be the middle class wants more authority or a vote than they get. There's a number of things that could go wrong. But they've shown a real penchant for being able to figure it out and evolve their system to be able to handle it. Corruption's another one.
We're talking about global growth and global economies. What's your sense about the strength of the recovery that we're currently seeing in the U.S.? And the big question emerging markets are dealing with and grappling with is when the Fed is going to act. You're on the board of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank in New York. What's your sense of when the Fed could perhaps start to move on rates?
I have to say I've been a little surprised because back in December I said that with the impact of lower oil prices was going to provide a significant boost to the U.S. economy in 2015.
Yeah.
Because if it used to cost somebody $100 to fill their car, it was only going to cost them $70 now. Huge. That's $750 to $1,000 per household of after-tax income that they just received. I fully expected they would spend it. They have not. And historically, consumers in the U.S. spend about 75% of newfound money. Whether it's a tax refund or lower gas prices, they spend it. This is the longest they have gone with newfound money and not spending it. Now, they're buttressing their balance sheet, which is a good thing, which creates a pent-up demand, if you will. So I fully expect that's going to come through. I don't know anything on interest rates. So I don't know what the Fed is going to do, so I'm far from being an official spokesman. But I would say there has to be some confidence that the recovery is real. And right now, we're still not seeing it. I fully expect it's coming, but so far we're not seeing it.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a break, but when we return, we continue our conversation with the global CEO of Honeywell, David Cote.